Imagine this. You're at the gym, mid-set, minding your own business, pushing through your limits, and then, out of nowhere, someone comes up to you, claiming the machine you're on is their spot. What would you do? Would you give in, or would you stand your ground? Today, we dive into a real-life gym showdown that's not just about machines. It's about respect and standing up for what's right. But before we get started, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that bell notification so you never miss a story that challenges, inspires, and gets you thinking. Let's jump in. Jason had been coming to the gym every day for the past few months. At 24, he was just beginning to feel comfortable in his own skin again after a long battle with his insecurities. The gym was his sanctuary, a place where he could push himself physically and mentally. The steady rhythm of his breath, the sound of weights clinking, and the hum of machines were all he needed to focus. That afternoon, he was working on his legs, pushing himself on the leg press machine, when he noticed a young man walking toward him. Jason didn't think much of it at first. There were always people coming and going, each absorbed in their own workout. But as the young man approached, he paused. "Hi, that's my machine," the young man said, his voice sharp with a sense of entitlement. Jason, still in the middle of his set, glanced up, puzzled. The machine was empty when he'd first sat down, and he'd been using it for the last 10 minutes. He was about to respond when the young man spoke again. "I use this machine every day. I'm just telling you this is my spot," the man continued, his tone now laced with something darker. "You're not supposed to take it. It's mine." Jason felt the familiar sting of annoyance rising in his chest. He had been polite, but now there was an edge to the younger man's words that seemed to stretch beyond the gym, beyond the situation. It wasn't just about the machine, it felt like something more, something Jason had faced before but never quite like this. Jason took a deep breath, looking the man up and down. He was tall, with bleach blonde hair and a rough, scrappy look that suggested he might have a chip on his shoulder. His gym attire was brand new, just a bit too crisp, as if he'd just put it on for the first time. "I don't see your name on it," Jason said evenly, trying to keep his voice calm. "Besides, it's a public gym. We share the equipment here." The young man sneered, and Jason could see the flicker of something behind his eyes. He shifted his weight, stepping closer, and Jason instinctively locked eyes with him. The gym had become eerily quiet around them, as if the space itself had noticed the tension rising. "You don't understand," the young man said, his voice dripping with venom now. "This place is for people who belong here, but not for people like you." Jason's heart skipped a beat, his fingers gripping the handle on the leg press tightly as the words hung in the air. He'd heard it before, many times in different forms. The subtle, and not so subtle, reminders that he, as a black man, wasn't always welcome in certain spaces. But hearing it here, in the one place that had felt like his refuge, stung more than he expected. Jason stood up slowly, meeting the young man's eyes with an unflinching calm. He wiped the sweat from his brow and then, with quiet strength, he spoke. "I belong here just as much as anyone. You don't get to decide that." The young man's face twisted with frustration. He opened his mouth as if to say more, but something in Jason's steady gaze seemed to hold him back. For a long moment, they stood there in silence, the weight of the confrontation thick between them. Finally, the young man scoffed and shook his head. "Whatever, you are not worth it." Without another word, he turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing through the gym. Jason stood there for a moment longer, the anger still burning in his chest. But it wasn't just the words of the young man that hurt him. It was the quiet, pervasive reminder of the prejudice and hate that lurked beneath the surface of so many spaces, even the ones that were supposed to be for everyone. But Jason wasn't going to let that get to him. He wasn't going to let anyone take away his space, his right to be there. He took a deep breath and returned to his workout, his muscles aching but his resolve stronger than ever. The gym was his place of growth, his place of strength, physically, emotionally, and mentally. And no one was going to take that away from him. As the machine hummed beneath him once again, Jason smiled to himself. He had a new workout to focus on, a new challenge to push through, not just for his body, but for his spirit. And for every space he was made to feel unwelcome, he would create 10 more where he was more than enough. A few days had passed since the confrontation at the gym, and Jason was back at his usual routine. He had almost forgotten about the incident, focusing instead on his sets and the steady rhythm of his workouts. The gym, after all, was his place of peace. It was where he could block out the noise of the world and just be. But as he was warming up on the treadmill, he noticed a familiar face across the room. It was the young man, tall, bleach-blonde hair, dressed in his crisp new gym clothes, his eyes scanning the room like he owned it. Jason's initial reaction was to ignore him, to continue his warm-up like nothing had ever happened. But as he glanced back over, he saw that the young man was looking directly at him, his eyes narrowing with a mixture of resentment and unease. Jason felt a brief wave of satisfaction. He'd stood his ground before, but there was something more powerful in knowing that the young man, who had so arrogantly tried to assert his dominance over a machine, now seemed unsure, almost afraid to come near him. Jason didn't flinch. He kept running, his pace steady, his focus laser-sharp. The young man, after a few moments of awkward hesitation, turned away, heading for the weight section. Jason couldn't help but notice the way the younger man kept his distance, making sure not to walk too close to him, even when the area around them was practically empty. Jason wasn't the type to gloat, but it felt good, better than he expected, to know that someone had learned the hard way that their behavior wasn't acceptable. As Jason finished his warm-up and wiped down his treadmill, he saw the young man again, this time attempting to work on the squat rack. It was the same routine: stand near the machine, glancing sideways to see if Jason was watching, and then shifting uncomfortably if their paths got too close. Jason smiled to himself. There was a certain power in knowing you weren't an easy target. It wasn't about violence or confrontation, it was about standing firm, showing that you wouldn't back down, and that you couldn't be intimidated or bullied. Just as Jason was about to head over to the free weights, he saw something unusual. Another guy, someone Jason hadn't seen before, was heading toward the young man at the squat rack. He was bigger than the bleach blonde, with a clean-cut appearance and a quiet confidence in his step. Jason couldn't hear what they were saying, but he could see the confrontation unfolding. The young man's face twisted in frustration as he said something, his hands gesturing wildly, but the other guy wasn't backing down. Instead, he stood his ground, his posture unwavering. Jason watched as the two exchanged words, the atmosphere tense. The young man tried to assert himself, raising his voice slightly, but the other guy remained calm, unbothered by the intimidation tactics. It didn't take long for the situation to resolve, but the look on the bleach-blonde guy's face told Jason everything he needed to know. There was a shift, a subtle but unmistakable change. The young man, now standing with his shoulders slumped, walked away, making sure to keep a wide berth from both the new guy and Jason. It was clear that he wasn't looking for any more trouble that day. Jason's chest tightened with a strange mixture of pride and relief. It wasn't just about him anymore. Someone else had stood up for what was right, and the young man had realized that his tactics, his bullying, wouldn't work on everyone. The gym was a place of strength, but not just physical strength. It was about mental and emotional resilience, too. And Jason wasn't the only one who saw through the act. He watched the new guy head over to the bench press, still calm and composed, and for a moment, Jason considered going over to thank him. But then he thought better of it. The man didn't need thanks. He had done the right thing without seeking any recognition. That was its own reward. Instead, Jason went back to his workout, feeling a renewed sense of empowerment. It wasn't just about taking up space anymore, it was about owning it. It was about understanding that you were worthy of respect, no matter who you were or where you came from. And most importantly, it was about showing others that the world didn't have to be a place where people got away with cruelty or disrespect. That's what Jason realized, standing tall among the weights. No matter who you were, no matter what the world tried to throw at you, the only thing that truly mattered was that you never let anyone make you feel small. The young man would learn that lesson eventually, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but Jason had no doubt that this gym would be a place where he couldn't bully anyone into silence. He had learned that standing up for yourself and for others was the real strength, the kind that couldn't be defeated by a loud mouth or a sharp tongue. And that made all the difference. And there you have it, a powerful reminder that standing your ground with calm and confidence can make all the difference. Whether it's at the gym or anywhere else, respect and courage go hand in hand. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more real-life moments that inspire and empower, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to hit that bell icon so you're the first to know when a new story drops. Thanks for watching, and remember, strength isn't just physical, it's in how you treat others too. See you next time.